In our third story tonight, the indications the Occupy movement could already be moving the political needle, if ever so slightly to the left, as some top members of the Obama administration say they hear the protesters' message and are considering tightening the rules on big banks. Treasury Secretary Geithner, who's long faced criticism for perceived sympathy to Wall Street, saying on CNBC today that he plans to deliver on the administration's promise of financial reform, claiming that, in fact, he already has.
You've seen very, very dramatic enforcement actions already by the enforcement authorities across the U.S. government, and I'm sure you're going to see more to come. You should stay tuned for that.
Meantime, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton echoing that message, telling a group of Manhattan business leaders today they are not off the hook, saying, quote, the protests ought to be a reminder to all of us that we have a great deal of work to do to live up to the expectations of the American people. This after several high-ranking congressional Democrats, including the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, pledged their support for the protest. Still, that could be in the hopes of advancing their own causes, winning the upcoming elections, per se. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the House Democrats' fundraising arm, now circulating a petition asking supporters to join them and, quote, stand with the Occupy Wall Street protests. That was fast. Joining me now, Countdown contributor Markos Moulitsas, of course, the founder and publisher of Daily Kos. Markos, good evening.
Good evening. Happy Friday.
And to you, sir. What do you make of the Geithner comments about expecting regulation? I mean, didn't he sort of undercut himself when he said he'd already put harsh regulations in place, apparently the invisible kind that nobody knows about?
Yeah, I'm actually happy that they're being forced to talk about this. It's much easier to ignore and hope that this goes away. And I think they're realizing it's not going away, so they have to hit it head on. And I'm happy that he says, stay tuned, things are going to happen. But when he says dramatic things have already happened, I mean, you know what? His definition of dramatic clearly is a lot different than mine, because I haven't seen anything that would even remotely come close to being called dramatic. So if we're going to get more of the same, then I'm not that excited. But if he's just trying to hint that there actually will be real action ahead of us, then that's a positive. I'm just not holding my breath right now.
And the Secretary of State's quote that the protests ought to be a reminder to all of us that we have, note the us and the we, have a great deal of work to do to live up to the expectations of the American people. That seems like it's slightly above kind of boilerplate. Translate that to who's the we? Who's this we, Kemosabe? Is she referring to herself and Wall Street, or just Wall Street, or who?
Well, that actually is a lot more encouraging, I have to say.
Okay.
When we talk about we, I mean, it's funny to me for a movement that's been criticized as not having demand. What does it stand for? People know what it stands for. I mean, there's no doubt what it stands for. I mean, and Hillary doesn't need to see a list of demands to know what this is all about. And those business leaders she was talking to don't need a list of demands to know what Hillary Clinton is talking about. They all know exactly what this is all about. And the fact is that they're going to have to pay more attention to it. And if nothing else, this is what this movement has really been all about.
What about the fundraiser from the petition from the DCCC? I mean, is that a little disingenuous, or is there a silver lining in that, or how do you read that one? Yeah,
I mean, part of it is they're trying to maybe co-opt the movement. That's a little crass and a little unseemly. On the other hand, they're kind of tying themselves to this movement. Yeah. So it gets a lot harder for themselves to try to carry Wall Street's water after they've sat there and said, we're in solidarity with Occupy Wall Street. Not that they won't try, don't get me wrong. Right. The crassness is not outside of the realm of politics. But, you know, in the past what would happen is that they would run away from those dirty hippies, right? Oh, hippies, go away. The fact that they're not, the fact that they're trying to find ways to use this to their advantage actually is a long-term good.
Having looked at this landscape, obviously politicians do not have to believe in something or even like it to advocate it or to get it done. I mean, it's nice when they do that. It's kind of sweet in an old-fashioned what they're supposed to be there for way. But being scared of it is sufficient, and it really can change. We're not Great Britain. But last spring, if you had told everybody that by fall there'd be 83 different investigations of Rupert Murdoch, that the tide had turned from a Rupert Murdoch teat-sucking community into a let's see if we can put him in jail community in a matter of 3 months, nobody would have believed you. Could it possibly move that dramatically in this country on something of far more substance than whether or not Rupert Murdoch is, you know, a bad guy and a bad influence on society?
Heck, if 3 months ago you had asked me or had told me that there would be this mass movement that was fixated on substance, not nonsense, right? Not the usual media crap, but actually substantive movement that was focused on income inequality and the excesses of Wall Street, and that it was starting to get attention from politicians, I probably would have laughed. I would have said, that's really optimistic and cute, but really, that doesn't happen in this America. Well, it's happening, and that's what's so excited about this, is that this is actually truly a movement based on substance, based on something more than death panels or, you know, notions of Obama wants to take away my guns and freedom. And this is actually based on empirical evidence that shows that the American people are not getting ahead except for that really tiny 1%. And to me, what's amazing about this is that Americans are getting the message, they're embracing it, and you even have people in that 1%. I mean, there's this great site, We Are the 1% Stand With You. I forget the exact URL. Yeah. But basically, it's people who are saying, yeah, no, we're one of those lucky 1%, and, you know, this isn't fair. This is not what America is all about, and we stand with you. We stand with that 99%.
We'll see. Countdown contributor and the founder and publisher of Daily Kos, Markos Moulitsas, great thanks. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Tomorrow, Occupy and all the related protest groups plan to act in unison around the world.